Music industry titan Jay-Z says that if someone's going to bring heinous allegations against him, they better have the proof to back it up. And his legal team put the court on notice that they are demanding a hearing. They say apparent inconsistencies in a woman's story after she accused the music mogul of raping her when she was a teen means the whole thing should get tossed out. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Jay-Z and his attorneys have come out swinging in response to the superstar being named alongside Sean Diddy Combs in this rape lawsuit, something that we've talked about here on Sidebar. This anonymous accuser who says the two men raped her at a VMA's after party in 2000, the Video Music Awards. And this woman claims that she was raped when she was 13 years old. The original lawsuit was filed in October and it named only Sean Combs, and it identified his alleged accomplice as Celebrity A. But then a recently amended complaint was filed that says that Celebrity A is actually Jay-Z, real name Shawn Carter, one of the richest people and maybe well-known people in the entertainment industry. Also, this amended complaint still lists a second alleged unidentified participant here, a female who's accused of watching this rape, only identified as Celebrity B. A lot of speculation about who this person could be if this story is in fact true. But Celebrity B, according to this Jane Doe accuser, was in that room when this alleged assault took place. Now, as soon as this news broke, Jay-Z, through his record label Roc Nation, put out a statement categorically denying that he ever did anything like this. And it became clear that he knew this lawsuit was coming out, that he knew he was about to be named because of seemingly, if you hear the parties, a breakdown in, I don't know if it's really negotiations, I'll get to that in a minute, but he knew this was coming out, put out a statement, and he even called out Tony Buzbee, the Texas attorney behind this lawsuit, who's already filed multiple lawsuits against Sean Combs. And Jay-Z claims that Tony Buzbee tried to blackmail him, allegedly saying, hey, Jay-Z, if you don't pay up, you're going to suffer the consequences on a very public stage because you will be revealed as an alleged child rapist. Now, part of the statement through Roc Nation, or through Jay-Z, said, quote, I have no idea how you have come to be such a deplorable human being, Mr. Buzbee, but I promise you, I have seen your kind many times over. I'm more than prepared to deal with your type. You claim to be a Marine? Marines are known for their valor. You have neither honor nor dignity. So certainly not a tepid response from Jay-Z, to say the least. And by the way, per the New York Times, we also found out that Jay-Z reportedly was that unnamed celebrity, John Doe, who sued Tony Buzbee for extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress before Jay-Z was officially named in this amended complaint. And he basically outlined what he's accusing Buzbee of now, that he felt like he was being extorted, either pay up or be exposed. And we didn't know who John Doe was at the time, and now it seems like it's Jay-Z. But what is happening right now? This is what we want to talk about. Here's the big thing. So, there are apparently some reported inconsistencies coming to light in regard to Jane Doe's memories of what she says happened that night, the night that she says Jay-Z and Sean Combs attacked her. And Jay-Z's legal team has pounced on that. They are trying to get this case completely thrown out. So first, quick reminder of what Jane Doe says allegedly happened to her back in 2000. So she claims, even though she was just 13 years old, she claims she got dropped off at Radio City Music Hall in New York City, where the VMAs, the Video Music Awards, were being held. Now, she says she didn't have a ticket, so she wandered around outside, maybe hoping to see a celebrity or two. But who did she see? Instead, she sees one of Combs' bodyguards, who allegedly told her to come back later that night, and then he would take her to a home where Combs was throwing a VMA's after party. So when Jane Doe gets to this home, she believes that the drink she was given was laced with drugs, because she said she started feeling woozy and disoriented. And she says when she went to find a room to lay down in, that is when she was assaulted. By the way, if I could just brag for a quick second. So Law&Crime, Sidebar, we are so successful because you guys day in and day out trust us to deliver the balls and strikes with these stories, whether it's Diddy or the CEO shooting. That is why we are thrilled to partner with a company like Straight Arrow News. This is an app and website focused on objective, unbiased reporting. As somebody who always is researching for Sidebar, I know how easy it is to get lost in biased journalism. But with Straight Arrow News, they help us cut through that with tools like the Media Landscape, which shows where outlets fall on the political spectrum. There's also the Media Mist tool, highlights stories that mainstream media might be skipping. So you can check it out for yourself for free and use the tools that we use to research at san.com/sidebar or click the link in the description. Supporting them means supporting journalists like us committed to delivering the truth. The complaint says Combs entered the room along with defendant Carter and a female celebrity, Celebrity B. Plaintiff immediately recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. And from there, Jane Doe claims that both Jay-Z and Shawn Combs raped her before she was finally able to get away. Again, both men have adamantly denied that this happened. Let's talk about what happened last weekend. This was major. Jane Doe apparently spoke with NBC News in an interview that aired last Friday night. And she acknowledged that her story does have some inconsistencies. So Jane Doe was quoted as saying, "I have made some mistakes." She said, though, she stands by her allegations overall, but says since this happened 24 years ago, some details may have been lost to time. But what exactly are those apparent inconsistencies? Well, Jane Doe said that after the alleged rapes, she was able to run away from the home and found a gas station where she was allowed to use the phone, and she said she called her dad to come pick her up. The problem with that is her father told NBC News he didn't remember that, and that if he had come to pick her up, it would have been a 5-hour drive. On top of that, he told NBC News that he never even heard of this alleged attack on his daughter until the reporters came asking questions. Also, Jane Doe claimed that she had spoke to or saw Benji Madden at this VMA's after party. He, of course, is the lead guitarist for the rock band Good Charlotte. But his representatives told NBC News that he was in the Midwest on tour at that time. So with that now coming out, Alex Spiro, this is Jay-Z's high-powered attorney, sent a letter to the judge calling the allegations a sham. Quote, she claims the assault took place at an after-party at Mr. Combs' home, but photos that night show Mr. Combs and Mr. Carter at Lotus nightclub for the after-party. When pressed, the plaintiff admitted she was guessing about key details, including the time it took to reach the venue. She admits she has no single corroborating witness over the last 24 years. Now, that's a very good argument. I guess the other argument could be maybe they went to Lotus, but maybe they also went to this other after party as well. Just put that to the side. Now, NBC News did report that they tried to locate a friend who allegedly drove Jane Doe to the VMAs that night, but it appears that person has since died, and they indicated that they tried to reach out to this person's relatives, but no luck. Jay-Z reportedly told NBC, this incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court, meaning Tony Busby filed it in court and doubled down in the press. And he added, true justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800 lawyer doesn't realize it yet, but soon. So what did Tony Busby say in response to all of this? Well, he released a statement defending himself, saying, look, Jane Doe's case was referred to me by another firm where her story had allegedly already been vetted. He wrote, our client remains fiercely adamant that what she has stated is true to the best of her memory. We will continue to vet her claims and collect corroborating data to the extent it exists. Because we've interrogated her intensely, she has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. I've never had a client suggest that before. It's an interesting response. It's almost, in a way, in my opinion, couching a little bit her allegations. And there seems to be, just in my opinion, maybe a little bit of doubt there. So couching where this could go. But for her part, as I said, she's defending herself. This unnamed Jane Doe said to NBC, quote, you should always fight for what happened to you. You should always advocate for yourself and be a voice for yourself. You should never let what somebody else did ruin or run your life. I just hope I can give others the strength to come forward like I came forward. Now, quick sidebar here on this. Two things. One, she is coming forward with a massive lawsuit against two major celebrities. One argument is, would you really do that unless you really thought this happened or really have the evidence to prove this happened? And by the way, that would be really true if she ends up having to identify herself in court, since a lot of the accusers in the civil suits against Shawn Combs, they've actually had to identify themselves per the court orders. So it'll be interesting if she has to identify herself and still moves forward with this lawsuit. You know, that might help her credibility. On the other hand, of course it is clear. I mean, look what just happened in the Duke lacrosse case, as we've been talking about. But it could be the case that somebody comes out of the woodwork and files false allegations against celebrities. It's happened before, it's happened in the past. So two competing narratives. Now, I want to go back to this because attorney Alex Spiro, Jay-Z's attorney, has filed an emergency motion, basically asking the court to issue an order demanding that Jane Doe and Tony Buzbee show cause or explain or provide a reason for why this case shouldn't be thrown out or why Jay-Z shouldn't be dismissed from the lawsuit completely, and for why evidence, at the very least, why evidence shouldn't be preserved in this case. And a memorandum in support of the filing, gives us more detail about what investigators and reporters were able to find out more than 20 years after the alleged assaults happened, and how it seemingly or allegedly contradicts with Jane Doe's lawsuit. So this memorandum reads, plaintiff's unsupported allegations crumble under scrutiny as the evidence and lack thereof reveals glaring inconsistencies and outright impossibilities in her story. Her account describes a jumbotron at the scene of the Video Music Awards, but according to NYPD sources and MTV producers, no such jumbotron existed. MTV applied for a permit to install one, but was denied. She references a house that supposedly fits the description of the location of the alleged assault, but no such house exists. And Spiro also contends that if Buzbee were comfortable putting his name on a story that had such gaping holes in it, then he wouldn't be surprised if Buzbee started destroying evidence. That's a big allegation. But the filing reads, the fundamental inconsistencies in plaintiff's case revealed in the NBC interview, coupled with Buzbee's chronic inability to follow the rules in this case and others, creates a substantial risk that Buzbee will destroy evidence damaging to plaintiff's case, including evidence of his own misconduct, impairing the integrity of the judicial process. An order immediately mandating the preservation of all evidence relevant to this case is necessary to ensure that Mr. Carter has a full and fair opportunity to present his defense against plaintiff's fictitious claims. This memorandum also gives a scathing summary of Buzbee's actions and how Spiro's firm believed that Buzbee had violated what's known as Rule 11. And Rule 11 deals with the expectation that lawyers not file a case for an improper purpose, or that the claims are backed up by the evidence, or they're supported by the law, they're supported by non-frivolous arguments. And if you fail to do that, sanctions could be imposed upon you. So this filing reads, rather than conducting his own due diligence to vet his client's claims, Buzbee merely relied on the purported vetting of another firm, telling NBC, Jane Doe's case was referred to our firm by another who vetted it prior to sending it to us. But no one from the other firm signed the pleadings in this case. Buzbee did. It goes on to say, under these circumstances and in light of Buzbee's misconduct in this lawsuit and others, it must be assumed that Buzbee will go to extraordinary lengths to conceal his ethical violations. There is accordingly a significant risk that Buzbee will seek to destroy documents or other evidence that would demonstrate that he knew or should have known that the allegations in the complaint were false. These allegations have caused incalculable harm to Mr. Carter, his family, his businesses, his employees, and his legacy. To defend against the fictitious claims advanced by plaintiff and Buzbee in this case, it is imperative that Mr. Carter be allowed to pursue all avenues of discovery permitted under the federal rules of civil procedure. Given that Buzbee has already ignored his ethical obligations in this case, the court cannot rely on Buzbee to abide by his duty to preserve relevant evidence. To ensure Mr. Carter receives fair discovery, the court must impose a preservation order. And in conclusion, Spiro says, the salacious allegations against Mr. Carter serve no purpose other than to harass him. And remember, I talked about under Rule 11, you cannot file a lawsuit for an improper purpose, like to harass another person. So again, they say this lawsuit serves no purpose other than to harass him and to pressure him to settle a lawsuit based on false claims. The court should dismiss plaintiff's entire FAC, that is the First Amended complaint, and at minimum, strike the allegations contained therein referencing Mr. Carter and dismiss him from this action. So in other words, throw out the case completely, or at least get me off of it, do what you want to do with Sean Combs. You know that attention has been shifting from what are horrific allegations against Combs and Jay-Z to this battle that has been going on both in the press and in legal fightings between Tony Buzbee, the attorney representing this alleged victim, and Jay-Z and Roc Nation, the entertainment giant that Jay-Z founded. Now, Tony Buzbee, already a prominent lawyer in Texas who represented accusers in cases against high-profile clients like NFL player Deshaun Watson, he burst onto the world stage really in October when he announced his intention of filing more than 100 civil lawsuits against Sean Diddy Combs. And he also promised to name high-profile celebrities that he says were involved in the sexual assault and raping of both men and women.
The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world.
And I'll tell you what, Buzbee, true to his word, has filed more than a dozen individual cases on behalf of Jane and John Doe's. But the first celebrity to be publicly named in one of these complaints was Jay-Z, real name Shawn Carter, now listed as a defendant in one of these cases. And the backlash from that was swift. Roc Nation, Jay-Z, they came out swinging, not only denying the allegations that Jay-Z raped a 13-year-old girl back in 2000, but also confronting Tony Buzbee about what they say is alleged misconduct. We actually did a whole sidebar episode about the accusations that Buzbee committed ethical violations. You can check that out on our YouTube channel for the full story. But going back to this, on top of all of that, Alex Spiro, Jay-Z's lead counsel, filed a lawsuit against Buzbee and basically said that Buzbee had tried to extort money from his client, saying if Jay-Z didn't pay up, this lawsuit would be filed and his reputation would be ruined. But now I have another lawsuit to talk to you about. This new lawsuit that was filed against Roc Nation by one of Buzbee's former clients. And this accuses the media company of essentially, allegedly trying to buy him off. So the lawsuit claims that Roc Nation paid people to impersonate officials, use fake badges, and offer money to people who agreed to file lawsuits against Buzbee's law firm. Again, now Jay-Z's #1 enemy. We got our hands on this complaint that was filed in Harris County, Texas, with a man named Gerardo Garcia as the plaintiff. And Garcia is a former client of the Buzbee firm who says he was approached at his home by some of these alleged bad actors. This lawsuit names multiple defendants, by the way. Marcy Bryan Croft, an attorney who works with Roc Nation, her law firm, MJ Legal, investigator Jessica Santiago, Roc Nation, and Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan. This is the law firm that represents Jay-Z, often just referred to as Quinn Emanuel. Now, the lawsuit begins, defendants have conspired to obstruct justice by engaging shadowy operatives to illegally seek out more than 24 current and former clients of the Buzbee law firm to convince those clients to bring frivolous cases against the Buzbee law firm. Defendant Roc Nation is financing the effort. Its attorneys, Marcy Croft and Quinn Emanuel, are orchestrating the effort. Quite the accusations. And the complaint accuses the defendants of basically committing barratry. It's a legal term you might not have heard before, but it's the act of encouraging someone to file frivolous lawsuits so that their attorney can make money. So here are the alleged facts as laid out in the complaint. On behalf of two clients, Tony Buzbee and the Buzbee law firm sent demand letters to Sean Jay-Z Carter's attorneys in New York. The letters made no monetary demand. They only sought a confidential sit-down to discuss the client's allegations. Again, this is the client who claims that she was raped by Jay-Z and Sean Combs. In response to the two letters, defendant Quinn Emanuel filed suit against the Buzbee law firm. This is that lawsuit that was filed by Shawn Carter. This is the one where he says that he was extorted by Tony Buzbee. And this, by the way, he was first filed as a John Doe. We didn't know it was Carter yet. This was filed before he was officially named in this lawsuit that he allegedly sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl. Going back to the statement, it says, that suit alleged that the firm was trying to extort Sean Jay-Z Carter. That lawsuit was and is frivolous and will be dismissed. Several weeks later, the Buzbee law firm, on behalf of one of the clients who sent the demand letter, filed a lawsuit against Mr. Carter. At or around that time, defendant's conspiracy began. One such target of defendant's solicitation was plaintiff Gerardo Garcia. Mr. Garcia is a resident of Harris County. He was injured in a Jones Act lawsuit and hired the Busbee law firm to represent him. His case was settled in 2020. He was happy with the resolution of his case and had no complaints with the Busbee law firm. Nearly 5 years later, after his case had resolved, not seeking to hire a lawyer or file a lawsuit, Mr. Garcia was contacted out of the blue by two investigators. And investigators is in quotes here. This contact was an illegal solicitation and was made on behalf of and as part of a conspiracy involving defendants Croft, Rock Nation, and Quinn Emanuel. One of these investigators identified herself as Jessica Santiago. According to Garcia, two investigators came to his home and flashed him some sort of badge saying they were from, quote, the state. And they asked him about his 2020 settlement, wanting to know if he was happy with the result and asking to see the paperwork. They allegedly said that they could get him in touch with a private lawyer who could help sue the Busbee firm and get him a lot of money. So what proof do Busbee and his client have to back up these quite salacious allegations? Well, Busbee says several interactions between his former clients and these alleged bad actors were caught on tape. Yeah, in fact, Busbee shared a photo on Instagram of these three men standing on a front stoop in a neighborhood. In the caption, he said, investigators from New York have contacted many of our law firm's current and former clients. These investigators aren't very smart. What they didn't anticipate was one of the clients decided to record the conversation. And the filing includes an alleged transcript of a conversation between Gerardo Garcia and Jessica Santiago, as well as affidavits from other former clients. They say that they were contacted and offered money if they would sue Busbee's firm. Now, according to the transcript, Santiago wanted Garcia to sign what she called a contract to investigate, which she explained gave a private lawyer permission to look into Garcia's case and settlement. She also mentioned several times that she is from the state. The transcript reads, "It's a private lawyer. We are from the state, but it's a private lawyer that knows what the Busbee law firm was doing. For example, last night someone signed up with us, and in his case, Busbee was depositing his checks in Busbee's private account and not in an account for lawyers, and he was charging the interest and taking the money. And he was stealing the checks from insurance. And so he didn't know that Busbee was stealing. That was his case. Now, I don't know much about your case, but the lawyer you will speak with today, she will explain that she will open your case, see what happened to you. But your name appeared on the list of people that may have something unusual, and she wants to investigate your case, and then she will recommend someone familiar with your kind of case to recover all that money." The client then asks, "And they are from the state?" The PI replied, according to the transcript, "The lawyer is from here, Texas, and also has a license in New York. Us, the investigators, are from the state, but we are not lawyers." Now, Santiago reportedly goes on to claim that 70 people are involved in a class action lawsuit against Busbee, and she allegedly tells Garcia that the lawyer she wants him to talk to is Marcy Croft from MJ Legal. Again, this is a private firm, but Croft reportedly does work with Rock Nation. Now, in the filing, Busbee included a screenshot of one of Croft's posts on Instagram where she gave a shout out to Rock Nation and Jay-Z, saying she was proud to be a small part of a great team. Now, the filing also includes another alleged transcript of a recorded telephone conversation, but it is unclear when this conversation exactly happened or who exactly was participating. But based on the fact that this was included in the lawsuit, I think we can conclude that the person on the call is a former client of Tony Busbee's. But he apparently tells the two attorneys on the other end of the phone that he didn't want to answer any questions about his case, including who his lawyer was, but he said he would listen to what they had to say. So according to this alleged transcript, one of the attorneys says, "In a couple of days or maybe by next week, anyone Googling Busbee and his company, his practice, you're going to see some of these lawyers are going to be going into litigation, okay? What we're trying to do is we're trying to put this thing together for the company that we're working for at this. If you have a case, we could get you paid and you could get money soon, you know? We gave this kid $1,000 to start yesterday just to get him on the right path. So yeah." So the person on the other end of the phone says, "Okay, let me ask you a question." And the attorney apparently replies, "At the end of the day, I appreciate your question. Just hold that thought for a second. At the end of the day, this is going through the courts. Busbee is getting sued, and eventually people are going to get paid out. Now, it's up to you if you want to be a part of," and that is where the recording ends. So, the allegation that former clients are being offered money to file a lawsuit is actually backed up by two affidavits included as exhibits here in the filing. In one, a Louisiana woman named Skylar Taylor says that three men from New York showed up at her grandmother's home multiple times, unannounced, uninvited, In her notarized statement, she says, "When I spoke with these men, they stated they were investigators hired by an attorney to contact clients of the Busby's law firm to join a class action against the Busby law firm. They refused to provide any further information on who they were, what investigation company they worked for, or what attorney hired them. Without knowing any of the details of my case, these men attempted to convince me to file a lawsuit against my attorneys at the Busby law firm. These men offered me money to sign on as a client with them. These men stated that they and or the attorney that hired them paid a former client of the Busby law firm $1,000 to sign on with them as a client and sue the Busby law firm." And then we have this affidavit from another woman in Louisiana. Her name is Shannon Champagne, and she tells apparently a very similar story. But she says she was offered a much larger sum of money. Her statement reads, "These men offered me money to sign on as a client with them. Specifically, they'd offered me $10,000 in exchange for signing with them as a client." Now, Attorney Marcy Croft responded to this lawsuit in a statement to USA Today, saying, "Tony Busby has now conjured up fantastical allegations against me and my firm, well-known corruption fighters, in a desperate attempt to distract from his mounting legal woes. We look forward to addressing these false allegations and having them dismissed." Rock Nation also responded, and this is a statement also that was obtained by USA. It says, "Tony Busby's baloney lawsuit against Rock Nation is nothing but another sham. It's a pathetic attempt to distract and deflect attention. This sideshow won't change the ultimate outcome, and true justice will be served soon." So we wanted to know more about this apparently pending litigation against Tony Busby, so we did a little bit of digging. And we found out that just a few days ago, a Louisiana man filed a lawsuit against the attorney and his firm. According to the complaint, Adam Guidry was a ship captain who was severely injured on the job. And in the filing, it states the Busby defendants told Guidry his case was worth $1 million, but later coerced him into settling for less than 1/3 of that amount. In insisting that he settle, Busby defendants never explained Guidry's options, never discussed the pros and cons of trial versus settlement, never disclosed mounting expenses, and never disclosed the meager amount Guidry would receive at distribution. Instead, Busby defendants told Guidry he had no choice. Guidry was vulnerable. He had lost his job as a result of his injury. He was financially destitute. His marriage had failed, and he was struggling with addiction. Relying on his lawyers, Guidry accepted. So according to Guidry, they settled the case for $325,000, but when the case was over and the funds were dispersed, he only got, allegedly, a little more than $5,000. Allegedly, the Busby law firm kept the rest to cover fees and expenses, including $90,000 for expert witness fees, nearly $6,000 for postage and copies, nearly $10,000 for more copies, and another $9,000 for travel expenses. The lawsuit also alleges that Busby charged interest on what he called loans, basically money up front that the firm used to pay for things before a settlement had been reached. And firms, by the way, are legally allowed to charge interest, but the amount is kind of limited. According to Guidry, Busby charged him 27% interest. Now, the Guidry filing also talks about a similar case that was filed against the same company that employed Guidry. This is Callan Marine. It was filed on behalf of a woman named Guadalupe Garza. Now, in maritime cases, workers recovering from an injury, they're entitled to what's called maintenance and cure. It's a type of workman's compensation. And maintenance is money that covers things like mortgage payments, food. Cure is supposed to cover medical expenses. Now, the complaint says at a hearing in the Garza case, Callan Marine's counsel stated that A, other Busby clients have reported not receiving maintenance and cure paid to the Busby law firm, and B, according to records, Busby defendants deposited maintenance and cure payments into its operating account rather than its trust account. And C, the Busby law firm apparently repackages maintenance and cure payments intended to provide living expenses for injured workers into loans which must be repaid with interest. So these are serious accusations of misappropriation of money and deceiving clients. And as far as we can tell, Busby has not responded to Guidry's claims, and it remains unclear what impact, if any, these accusations could have on other civil litigation that Busby has filed on behalf of his clients. But I'll tell you one thing, this is a legal war, and this is a legal mess.
Rap mogul Jay-Z firing back at a woman accusing him of rape and her lawyer after she grants an interview and acknowledges inconsistencies in her story. I'll tell you about Shawn Carter's latest legal move and what Sean Diddy Combs has to say about the woman's sit-down with a reporter. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Jay-Z's lawyer is doing everything he can to get this lawsuit accusing the rapper of rape thrown out. A 38-year-old woman filed the suit against Jay-Z and Sean Combs back in October, and at first, Jay-Z wasn't named in the suit, but that changed 8 days ago when the accuser's flamboyant attorney, Tony Busby, amended the suit to include Jay-Z's legal name, Shawn Carter. Prior to that, Jay-Z was known only as Celebrity A in the suit. The woman, who's identified at this point only as Jane Doe from Alabama, granted an interview to NBC News, which aired Friday night. And when it aired, Jay-Z's lawyer, Alex Spiro, pounced. He wants this lawsuit thrown out of court. That's how bad he claims things are. First, a little bit of background on the suit. I've told you about it before. The woman claims she went to the MTV Video Music Awards back in 2000 when she was just 13 years old, and then an after party where she says Jay-Z and Sean Combs raped her at a house as an unnamed female celebrity, Celebrity B, watched. The woman said while outside the VMAs at Radio City Music Hall, she couldn't get in because she didn't have a ticket, so she hung out outside and talked to limo drivers. The lawsuit says one of the limousine drivers she spoke to claimed to work for defendant Combs. The driver told her that Combs liked younger girls and said she fit what Diddy was looking for. And while not allowing her into the awards, the driver invited her to an after party. The driver stated that he had to drive Combs and others to the after party first, but instructed plaintiff to return to his location after the event and that he pick her up and take her to the after party. The suit describes the woman being taken to a house where she saw and spoke with other celebrities and drank something that made her feel woozy, and eventually made her way to a room where she said there was only a bed. The suit states, soon after, Combs entered the room along with defendant Carter and a female, Celebrity B. Plaintiff immediately recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. Plaintiff was held down by Carter as he vaginally raped her, while Combs and Celebrity B watched. After Carter finished, he stepped back toward the wall. Combs then stepped forward and vaginally raped plaintiff while Carter and Celebrity B watched. Combs then knocked plaintiff down and attempted to force plaintiff to perform oral sex on him. She fought back, standing up quickly and punching out at the same time, hitting Combs in the neck. Taken aback, Combs stopped his attempt. Now, we still to this day don't know who Celebrity B, the female, is alleged to be. The woman's attorney, Tony Busby, had sent a demand letter to Jay-Z's lawyers when the suit was first filed, seeking mediation. Fast forward to last Friday night. NBC News aired its interview with the woman and posted it on its website. The story quotes the woman as saying, "I have made some mistakes," in her recollections of that night. The woman, identified as Jane Doe in the lawsuit, led against Jay-Z and Diddy, told NBC News. The woman said she stands by her allegations overall. The inconsistencies in her account of the incident, alleged to have happened 24 years ago, do not necessarily mean the allegations are false. Now, I'll get to what Jay-Z and his legal team are saying about this in a moment. NBC News went on to detail some of the inconsistencies, including that the woman said her father picked her up after the assault, but he told NBC News he doesn't remember that, and it would have been a 5-hour drive had he done so. The woman also claimed she spoke to Benji Madden at the after party, but his reps told NBC News he was on tour in the Midwest that night, not in New York. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, fired off a letter to the judge in the case Friday night, saying this is a matter of grave importance and he plans to file a motion to strike the lawsuit. Spiro wrote, "Basic facts in her narrative, the who, what, when, and where, are wrong. She claims her father picked her up after the assault. Her own father denies that ever happened. She claims she spoke with Benji Madden at the party that night, but he was on tour in the Midwest at the time, forcing her to admit, 'I have made some mistakes. I may have made a mistake in identifying.' She claims the assault took place at an after party at Mr. Combs' home, but photos that night show Mr. Combs and Mr. Carter at Lotus nightclub for the after party. When pressed, the plaintiff admitted she was guessing about key details, including the time it took to reach the venue. She admits she has no single corroborating witness over the last 24 years. Now, Spiro also took some shots at attorney Tony Busby, claiming he didn't vet this woman or the suit before taking it on. He wrote, "It is stunning that a lawyer would not only file such a serious complaint without proper vetting, but would make things worse by further peddling this false story in the press. We are asking this court to dismiss this frivolous case today, and will take up the matter of additional discipline for Mr. Busby and all the lawyers that filed the complaints." Busby said the firm that referred the suit to his firm vetted the claims and the accuser. In a statement to NBC News, Busby said, "Jane Doe's case was referred to our firm by another who vetted it prior to sending it to us. Our client remains fiercely adamant that what she has stated is true, to the best of her memory. We will continue to vet her claims and collect corroborating data to the extent it exists. Because we have interrogated her intensely, she has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. I've never had a client suggest that before." Jay-Z posted a statement on X. "Today's investigative report proves this attorney Busby filed a false complaint against me in the pursuit of money and fame. This incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court and doubled down in the press. True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800 lawyer doesn't realize it yet, but soon." And not to be forgotten, what does Sean Combs' legal team have to say about Jane Doe's inconsistencies? His legal team told me, "Last week, a lawyer admitted that over 50 people falsely claimed to be victims. Last Friday, for the second time in a week, a Busby plaintiff has been exposed. This is the beginning of the end of this shameful money grab." I want to bring in Nima Rahmani. He is an entertainment attorney, also a former federal prosecutor. So, Nima, what do you make of this latest move by Camp Jay-Z with them saying, look, there are inconsistencies in this accuser's story?
Angenette, litigation is about chess. And, Tony Busby, I think, made some pretty serious mistakes here. He should have known that Jay-Z was going to come out swinging because Busby knew that Jay-Z was the one who filed the extortion lawsuit against him. So before he unmasked his client, and I understand that she's still proceeding as a Jane Doe, but moved forward with a very serious complaint like this, he should have vetted the allegations. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but jurors and members of the public might take these inconsistencies to mean that she's lying. So certain things should have been done already, like ask her father if he indeed drove and picked her up that evening. That's an easy question to ask. And I understand that the friend who drove her to the VMAs and the after party appears to be deceased, but asked if there's any other percipient witnesses. I think they should have done a little bit more vetting before they move forward with these types of allegations against someone like Jay-Z, who they know is going to fight them and call her a liar.
And Jay-Z is somebody with a lot of resources. He's hired Quinn Emanuel. I mean, that's a heavy hitter law firm in New York. They're not going to take this lying down. So he's fighting this with everything he has. I mean, he's putting out statements like crazy on Twitter, and they're really fighting not only a legal battle here, but a PR battle.
No question. And, I'm here in Los Angeles, and my daughter used to go to school with Beyonce and Jay-Z's daughter, Blue Ivy. They have a lot of money. And I have cases against a lot of people in the entertainment industry, including Alex Spiro and Quinn Emanuel. And you got to know what their MO is, because Jay-Z is not just fighting this case. He's fighting for his reputation, for all his business dealings, for his wife. So they are going to drag this victim through the mud. So this is something you need to prepare your client for. And look, I've sued lots of people in the music industry, Kanye, Lizzo, and I prepare all my clients the same way, saying, listen, they're going to call you a liar. We need to make sure every one of these allegations is accurate, because if not, guess what? That's going to help prove their case. We need to have our credibility. We need to have our likability. So this is something that should have been done before. And the problem is, NBC is fantastic, but now in the past week or so, we've had 2 victim interviews, one with CNN and one with NBC. And the vetting that NBC did was really sort of surface level that should have been done by Busby's firm already. And, Busby's response was, well, we got this case referred from another firm that vetted it, but that doesn't really absolve you of your responsibility as a plaintiff's lawyer. Again, I'm not saying that this means that the victim is lying. I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, so much less something that happened 24 years ago. But you have to anticipate this if you're Busby and his firm, and I think he did a poor job doing so.
One thing that I've noticed too is that, a week ago when Tony Busby amended the complaint and named Jay-Z, he was putting out tweets and things of that nature. Now he's silent. I mean, he had put out a statement to NBC News after this interview ran. The accuser, I want to say, is standing by her assertions that this was Jay-Z and Shawn Combs, but she does admit she may have misidentified other people. I don't know if that bodes well for this entire thing, but she stands by all of this other stuff. But there are some holes in the story, it sounds like. So he said nothing else on Twitter. There are no other tweets. Do you make anything of that?
Potentially, yes. And we know that the best defense is a good offense. So, there's a small handful of people that defend musicians in these types of cases. And this is their MO in all the cases, to go after the lawyer and go after the victim. I've been called every name in the book by some of these lawyers, right? My clients have been shamed. But you brought up a good point. Someone like Benji Madden, right? Another celebrity who, at least according to the complaint, was there. And there's this discussion about his tattoos and the religious significance. And it turns out he was nowhere near New York on that date. He was touring in the Midwest. So that's a pretty significant statement that turned out to be inaccurate. And maybe Busby is doing a little bit more vetting now, because anytime you bring a case like this, Angenette, that's decades old, and the victim admits that she didn't tell anyone, right? There's no contemporaneous report. You really want to corroborate these facts to the extent that you can and do that vetting. And I do think that maybe Busby is doing that now, and maybe that's why he's so quiet, because he's taken some blows, at least in the court of public opinion, and he wants to make sure that, he comes correct next time when he goes after Jay-Z or another celebrity, because this has been a bad week for him and his client.
It really does seem like it. And it's interesting to me that the accuser even sat down with NBC News. I don't know if that was the best decision, but somebody obviously made the decision that she should do this interview.
Yeah, so this kind of cuts both ways. Oftentimes lawyers do not want their clients giving interviews because they're giving statements and it can give rise to inconsistencies. We see it time and time again, even in a criminal case, right? Even if your client is innocent, most lawyers will tell their client, advise them, don't talk to law enforcement, because at trial, those statements can be used against you, and it's no different. But we are seeing a shift, at least in the PR strategy by Busby's team, apparently, because again, now they've given 2 sit-down interviews with major news networks. The other was not related to Jay-Z, but it's the security guard who was allegedly raped by Combs. That was a pretty extensive interview with CNN, and now we have this NBC interview by this specific victim. But if I'm Busby, I want to make sure that I really start looking for that corroborating evidence to see if there's other victims that may have accusations against Jay-Z, because we know oftentimes when there are abusers, they don't necessarily just abuse one person, to see if we can do anything to corroborate and bolster this particular case, because it's hurting a little bit right now.
Well, it will be interesting to see what comes of this. I mean, that letter that Alex Spiro sent, I mean, I can see why he sent that. He sent it immediately. I mean, it came out within a couple of hours of the NBC story posting. I'll be interested to see how the judge responds moving forward. But it doesn't, I mean, at this point, do you see this not looking good for the accuser?
Potentially. Again, it's just one defeat. We talk about chess, right? Maybe Busby's lost a particular piece, but the case isn't necessarily over. He says he believes his client is insisting on moving forward. Ultimately, these are factual determinations for a jury, but they need to know that there's going to be a lot of mud that's slinged at them over the coming weeks and months until this case goes to trial. We know Spiro's MO, right? He's going to try to unmask this client, right? And we've talked about it, how federal judges, there's no rule that says that victims of sexual abuse have to remain anonymous. And a lot of the plaintiffs in the Combs cases, the civil cases, they've had to identify themselves. And that may be the case here. So that would be sort of step one. I would tell my client, hey, you might have to be publicly named. And then, obviously, Busby has resources, he has money, he needs to hire investigators and then to go back and do this type of investigation. And again, the easiest step would have been Dad, because obviously they have access to him, but anyone else that she may have been friends with that can verify that she was even there that evening, right? Just basic steps like that. Who else was at that after party? Let's contact them. Let's start asking questions. I think that investigation is going to be very, very important, because if you lose the court of public opinion, jurors, even though they're supposed to decide the case solely based on the facts and evidence of that case, we've seen time and time again, Angenette, and we've talked about it, how public opinion matters, right? It can be in the Johnny Depp case. It can be in the Luigi Mangione case. It doesn't matter what the case is. So you got to make sure that that's all buttoned up if you're going to move forward and give these types of interviews and make these types of accusations.
Thank you so much, Nima Rahmani. I appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me, Angenette. Talk soon.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.